I have given some thought to this and think I can explain it now. There exists for Obama a parallel universe that allows him not to blush when calling what Germany did to the Jews the worst crime in history, to excuse and condemn someone being outspoken about what happened to Palestine, with no mention whatsoever of the Texas school book script that was sent to me from Israel. The parallel universe that Obama has constructed is a parallel universe that disallows that the script ever took place, but secretly and top secretly, the white is to blame. Jimmy Carrey and was just getting it beaten half to death. But they advertised it. They poisoned me in the mouth. They tortured me. They made me deaf. They never cared at all. And because as far as they're concerned, the Palestinians think it's right. They think it's probably think it's funny. The white who was getting kicked out of girl's bed for crying about his poverty. The Irish. They had in one of the letters squirrel spelled Squrl. They took out the IRE. And nobody who pretended they didn't know about the letters ever called attention to the fact that I was being called a goy, that they were laughing about making me deaf openly, and that they were calling me a squirrel in such a way as to say the IRE, the Irish, are getting kicked out of the Jewish community. In other words, a farcical travesty that was known to have been put on by the pornographic corporations. But that's all in a parallel universe. It never happened, according to Barack Obama. But you should blame the little white boy. Okay, so we know the two sides of the parallel universe. And we know that, interestingly enough, Putin is on the same side as Penis Sinfield. That's why Roger Waters is one of the ambassadors for Henry Kissinger's team. You see, why the VA was in position to brief me through a plan to sides with Russia, because it's about choosing sides, because they have a parallel universe. They want to push off the parallel universe and obstruct the inquiry into the Texas school book. We're supposed to just accept it because Zooks are involved, So, well, how did this parallel universe come to be so popular? Well, if you look at Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King, there are occasionally people born, men who are born, who are sensitive to the idea that acts of aggression are abnormal. They can't bring themselves to do it. They see it as a feedback loop into their sensibilities. It's a way of harming, self-harm, to hurt somebody. And we know that they sometimes become popular. Somebody angles out at them in the direction, I mean, there was a whole doctrine of Nazism. It's absolutely not true. The moral right is to attack somebody because predators are the strong, they're good. And, it's very difficult for somebody who believes it's their duty and it's customary to look like we're in a dispute between the United States and America for Russian honesty and USA's honesty, and where the honesty is diminished by some deception, to point it out. So, there's no, they get away with it by both being violently abnormal. And you have to choose a side because they force you to choose a side. It's very difficult to say, I won't side with Russia or I won't side with the US because people will clobber you with the reasons why you should choose one side or the other. And nonviolence is generally ruled out. And it is exciting to these thinkers to use somebody who has this sensibility as a feedback loop for two purposes on either side of the parallel universe. One of the purposes is to blame them, to pin the tail on the donkey, to say secretly it happened and we're going to get this one, to make it even though it was obvious it was a blindfold, it was a game put on by people who left a script. I mean, after all, they want to make money off it. They have a whole production team waiting in the Kremlin offices, straining at the least. Give us, let us promote this. And the other factor that they use me for is that when you have this sensibility about a feedback loop of that nature, it's easy to seduce such a child through corruption of the morals of a minor. And which is, to put it nicely, what they did was they tortured me and forced me as a hostage into bondage acts with adults who were very steamy. And I would cry and try to get out of it, and they would mock me and terrorize me and beat me until I obeyed. But it is a form of corruption of the morals of a minor. But they have this music system going, oh, it's okay, you're allowed to do that now. Medicine says it's okay. And the girls say it's okay, and the girls kiss, 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 kiss. It's easy to turn that thing into a moral story about the Venus flytrap, which, the Wattenmakers who were working with King Crimson presented this as. And I'm not endorsing any violence against anybody. The parallel universe has made strict non-concessions to the existence of the evidence. So it doesn't go to court. The police don't talk about it with me. The doctors don't express concerns about how I got black teeth. The school, the people behind COVID put on a public demonstration right before it landed. They were walking around like this. Oh, at least I think those are the people who did, because I mean, when you line up all of the evidence, it looks that way. But they had special endorsement. I mean, because the parallel universe, Biden's not going to investigate. Obama says no. Trump, Putin, and Putin have shaken hands on it. Everybody's sort of aware that there's a leapfrog council of dictators. And the homegirls, men just ran from them, oh, well, I can't do nothing about it. There were the people who suffered the most were called necessary workers, I believe. And I've seen some books about, I watched it and absolutely appalled. I am believed to have caught it almost immediately. But it was before there were tests, so there's no way to really know. And whatever happened, I was mercifully spared, at least have been so far. And of course, the catastrophizing movement abstracted away towards Greta. And she's like a magic shield for the Beatles and the British Empire, who put on this. She was sort of chosen by them the way I was chosen by them. Now everybody knows I'm defending her because I'm head over heels in gratitude to her for somebody saying what needed to be said about saving the planet. But to use it as a trumpet to alibi this sort of activity is wrong. We need, in my opinion, the parallel universe construct shows that it was a multicultural brainwash from the Jeffens who funded Obama and Clinton and stuff. So you wonder behind the scenes, they moved into the Ukraine. Notice how Biden and Trump both got special um, lugubre wax, LickyChops in Ukraine before this came out. Makes you wonder if there was a sort of a deal. We'll use the Ukraine as a gesture of absolute um, buck stops here. We're gonna move into the new way that things are done. So both sides normalize these crossing of swords and the use of the rest of us as cannon fodder. It's power making good on power from behind the scenes. I call it a leapfrog allegory. They leapfrog from one country to another behind the scenes, passing the ruler behind the back. And one of the most profound things I've heard is that the Middle East is being torn apart by the gun traffic, not by religious disputes, not by mistreatment of women. It's the fact that the only thing anybody can do is get a gun job because that's all there is. It's the only resource. They don't have any food, they don't have any water, but they're passing out rifles like crazy. And the source of this is a bizarre mentality that goes flim-flamming through, you know, nuclear history about, important people designating less important people subordinates to control cultural assets. And that's how the West ended up being saddled with the claim that all of us are to blame for the exploitation of industry and so on, which is false and unfair. There's quite a few of us who have tried to live reasonably and explore curricular change, but you have to look at the challenges. America doesn't get the credit it deserves for making major milestones of social justice. That's why so many people, despite the parallel universe issues, magnetic towards Biden. Finland, Sweden, these countries are countries who can be trusted. They're not terrible people. They're beautiful individuals. And it's not just because they're white. A lot of these people in Latin America deserve a better shake. In Africa deserves a better shake. China deserves a better shake in the court of public opinion. I'm not like a harebrained anti-imperialist or any of that. I understand that there's a certain curve in the direction of people looking after themselves and being entitled to the fruit of their labor. But there's also social, genuine responsibilities to the society and world around us that makes that possible. And ecology is something that should be read and considered. I mean, I've been saying this since the 70s. I'm not trying to sell myself to anybody. I realize that there are people who are off in the parallel universe when it comes to me. They're just going to live in the parallel universe when it comes to me. But there's other people in the educational system who are the same way. There are people in the educational system who've dedicated their lives. My mother, frankly, dedicated her life and carried the burden of teaching people who had trouble with grammar how to write and speak proper English in second language states. She worked night and day, herself to tears. She grinded herself out. But she worked and worked and worked and worked, teaching people how to use commas, how to use periods. She noticed some of the most overlooked things about my writing and my poetry. Okay, she is a hardworking person who have committed herself to helping people, and they're in the Salvation Army. It's not voluntary poverty. Many of these people would like to make their money and build a future for themselves. It's not trying to escape, is the point. It's not trying to escape responsibility. It's not trying to put responsibility off onto others. And very narrow-viewed people say that, well, if you don't um, become a slave for society, then what you've done is try to escape. It's not true. That kind of extremism it allows imperialism to prosper. What we need to do is look at it without undue skepticism, the United Nations. And I know that Russia deserves credit for organizing a ceasefire extension in Yemen, because those of us who have been um, driven into trauma care, myself, by the U.S. bombardment of Iraq, have struggled with the Yemen issue and the Syrian issue. And it makes us feel better knowing that at least one of the superpowers has kept their word. And America does need to look at itself. There has to be self-review from the United States of America. You know, in my opinion, Trumpy-Toon wants to save America so it can lie all it wants to. That's not. And we're up against terrible difficulties because of movements like that. You know, it's not reasonable. I've seen people who are veterans who are injured who live on the streets. My heart goes out to them. But you can't say somebody who's 61 years old, who's deaf, who's traumatized, who should be the person who does their laundry for them, or the person who gives away my comic book money for African relief, because there's certain kinds of norms that somebody like me grows up in. I was not even allowed to have a family because of this dialectical argument that comes out of the University of Pittsburgh and the Beatles' stronghold and chokehold by King Crimson over my life, my affairs. And they have a huge machine they're ready to play. Huge. Pink Floyd goes off the pew, and Oliver Stone goes off the pew, and they shake hands, and they're real cappy. So they have a huge machine, and they would like to twist me into a form where they could use me. And certainly, if I'm ever going to be a friend of Greta Thunberg, I would have to do one of these to all that. Okay. You know, I would love to be a friend of Greta Thunberg, but I refuse to promissory any of my proceeds from anything. I'm going to publish a poetry book. Now, hopefully, it'll bring in $20 now and then. I refuse to promise that to anybody. It's out of the question. It's out of the question. It's not the culture I was raised in, and it's not what I believe should be. I believe in an element of transparency, but when you're dealing with a thief who's shown that they're weaponized thieving, who took you kidnapping, tortured you, who have constructed a parallel universe around you, who refuse to recognize your hard work on behalf of the public's right to know, because I've done a lot. I'm in carpal tunnel, kid, on my hard work. And it wasn't self-defense. It didn't start as self-defense. They kept zinging me and poisoning me and saying it's self-defense, but it wasn't. It was an investigation. It was a down and dirty investigation. And for these assholes, the key word is dirty, 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 monkeypox dirty. That's the only word they heard. What I meant by dirty was that I was pursuing. I went to Maine with $6 in my pocket and a toothache that was killing me because I had a lead that I needed to pursue. And that's what I mean when I say down and dirty. And it led to a productive research investigation that Obama has been smashing me to deny. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything that was untrue about the Holocaust. I'm not a Holocaust denier. It's one of the things that made me morally passionate was growing up in a neighborhood where I heard about what happened. But I don't compare these things. I'm not in UW dialectical. Get it? I don't say, well, the black man was done this, so we're going to find a white. and the white got it, so I'm going to go find a queen. That's not how I think. That's UW dialectical playing their little wizard word game. I don't believe in it. I think it's wrong. Okay. Putin hit us where it hurts. He said we're the ones who are prolonging this by not negotiating, by not being reasonable. I would like an answer to that.